We are live today on the Questionable Perspective here with Killian Carter, your host. So today's gonna be a short episode, but I think an episode that needs to be done because of the way that the Sanders campaign has been handling the Bernie bro narrative that the mainstream media has constructed. Now, anybody who's actually looked into this understand that this narrative has been weaponized against Sanders because they cannot attack him on policy because his policy is rock solid, and as the polls are showing more and more that the country is in favor of these policies. So I want to go and look at a video quick of I think Jeff Weaver it is on MSNBC talking about when he's confronted about the Burning Bro myth and how he handles it and how the Sanders campaign specifically has been handling this Bernie Bro narrative. So let me pull that up right now. Let's see what we got here. Okay, let's play that for you.
To be here. Thank you.
All right, so Bloomberg has been laser focused on President Trump. This is really the first time that he has set his sights on a Democratic opponent. What do you make of this?
Well, look, we call Mike Bloomberg the billionaire backstop. I mean, his whole campaign is designed to stop Bernie Sanders from getting the nomination and going on to beat Donald Trump. I mean, look, Democratic voters are united. Given what we have in the White House, we don't want a president who's going to cut Social Security, who's opposed to raising minimum wage, who wants to ration health care. We don't want that. We don't want someone who has racist criminal justice policies. And so that's why we don't want Mike Bloomberg.
As far as that rebuke of Mike Bloomberg goes, that is a wonderful contrast being made because Mike Bloomberg, as I've stated in previous videos, is basically just a Republican attempting to stop Bernie Sanders. Now, let's continue on to the point where I think Jeff's argument needs to be a little bit stronger. So let's get to that.
We got that now with Trump. We don't need that with Mike Bloomberg.
Couple of points just to challenge you on that. Number one,
Sure.
this is not the first time that Senator Sanders supporters have been criticized for their behavior. Members of the powerful Culinary 226 Union in Nevada said that they were quote unquote viciously attacked, for offering facts on health care. Sanders says harassment is unacceptable to him. But do you need to
Correct.
address this? Do you need to address this in a more meaningful way when it comes to his supporters?
Well, we have, and we do, and the senator has personally, as you just mentioned, Brooke. I've certainly done it many times, and other people in our campaign have done it many times. Look, Bernie Sanders wants a civil discourse. It can be a rigorous discussion of the issues. People aren't going to agree, but it doesn't have to get personal. It doesn't have to get nasty. It doesn't have to get that kind of in the dirt negative. And Bernie Sanders has spoken out against that and told anybody who carries on like that, he doesn't want them in his movement. So I think he's been very clear.
But has it
Interestingly
been
about the Mike
enough?
Bloomberg
Has it been
ad,
enough if it's continued? Does he need to say more?
Well, the internet is, as you know, the internet is not a place where you can control people often, and there's a lot of that goes on the internet that I don't think any of us would condone.
Yeah. As far as all the money, right? And Mike Bloomberg.
Okay, so that really gets to the heart of it. See, the way he tackled that question was very weak. And this is a problem with the Sanders campaign is weakness. I've stated it before. Now, he allows the mainstream media to run with the narrative. He agrees with their framing of the argument. Their framing of the world is that what the Bernie Sanders supporters is that there is at least a contingent, even if they call it extreme, that Bernie, by acknowledging this and the way he refutes it by saying, well, Bernie Sanders has called for civility, Bernie Sanders has called this and that. What Bernie Sanders needs to say is that my supporters, by and large, are respectful online, and the only thing they do is respond to malicious criticisms of the candidate, and the way that they respond is generally with facts, and facts, once more, are not attacks. So this was a very poor way to handle this argument. The Sanders campaign and Sanders himself has been handling this in a very poor manner, allowing the mainstream media to have this narrative. And if you allow them to craft this narrative, they will forever live with it and run with it. If you do not squash this narrative in its birth, they will continually pester you about it. Because what they're talking about with the Culinary Union being vicious attacks, they were not vicious attacks against the Culinary Union. There were responses to the Culinary Union lying about Sanders' plan and what it does for America. So this is the playbook of the mainstream media and the Stop Sanders movement. It's to say outrageous things that you know are false or to gaslight the left, and then when they respond, the left then gets in trouble for responding, even though if it's mainly with attacks, if it's mainly with facts, over attacks in 90% of instances. It's the same thing as if you're playing football and two people are going at it. It's always the person who counterpunches that gets the flag thrown on them, even though they weren't the one who started it. And I think that we can all agree that that has been an unfair way of handling things, and that rule set is flawed, and it is in this case too. So the way that Sanders' campaign once again is handling this, just to reiterate, is poor. They're allowing a narrative to be crafted, and this narrative will continue to be ran. You need to stick up for your supporters and be honest that every campaign has the very extreme ones that are going too far, but by and large, the Sanders campaign has the same supporters that are angry at a system that is attacking them, that is maligning them, and they are responding to malicious attacks against their senator, who in the not me us name, not me us, by attacking him, you are indirectly, or in matter of fact directly, attacking the working class. So they have a right to be angry. Now I want to go on to this because there seems to be a split within surrogates in the Sanders campaign, that ones that are more aggressive and ones that are not. Now, Brianna Joy, the press secretary, is a little bit more aggressive. I'd say she could be even a little bit more aggressive, but so eventually Bloomberg here in this thread, let me see if I can find it. We got Jennifer Rubin responding. Yeah, so Brianna responds to this. So here's the thread is Mike Bloomberg posts a thing of examples of attacks by these commentators. And this has been the problem previously, is that these attacks, nobody's ever questioned what was being considered an attack. Because if you do not define an attack and you, again, allow them to run with this narrative, you will allow them to craft whatever they want to call an attack and run with it without challenge. And if you do not challenge this, they will continually foster this narrative and strengthen it until people believe it in their mind without any evidence. So let's see what the Mike Bloomberg team has to say about these attacks. So let me read this. So in just the past week, the Bernie Sanders National Press Secretary, Brianna Joy Gray, Senior Advisor David Sirota, and National Campaign Co-Chair Nina Turner have referred to Mike as a racist and an oligarch, implied Donald Trump is better than the fellow Democrat candidate for president, and they called Bloomberg supporters enablers. None of these things are vicious, just to let you know. All these things are true. Mike Bloomberg was for stop and frisk. Racist. Mike Bloomberg said you can Xerox black and brown people from the ages of 16 to 25 and then throw them against the wall just because they are black and they are brown. Mike Bloomberg has been effectively trying to buy the election, which is oligarchic in nature, and he has the same economic policies as Trump, except for now he's shifted his alignment in the last 6 months because he's decided that he wants to run for president. So let's see what these attacks are in their wording. If you wouldn't even condone a tweet criticizing a racist authoritarian like Bloomberg, you're a fence-sitting enabler of the worst variety and have no business holding yourself out as a Democrat, much less a progressive. Brianna Joy Gray. Oligarch of the month, Michael Bloomberg. From Twitter, from Nina Turner. Moreover, we have no reason to believe Bloomberg's newfound political commitments. He has demonstrated a willingness to change his stripes with the political winds, and because he's self-funded, is literally accountable to no one. The danger he presents cannot be overstated. Brianna Joy Gray. Trump will say that he has a better record on criminal justice than Bloomberg, and he may be right. I am told this is from Brianna Joy Gray. I am told Michael Bloomberg is an oligarch. He's just a billionaire who buys elections in his part-time resident of a foreign tax haven. David Sirota. I may not have a PhD yet, but I do have the good sense of knowing what makes for oligarchy. Anyone capping for a billionaire with a media company able to buy endless ads and influence party rules halfway through is precisely a perpetuator of the corrupt system, i.e. an oligarch. From the Turner. All of these things that were stated, these were not malicious. These were not personal attacks. These were things that are true and that can be defined in an objective way. And yet you will see these media figures still continue to consider that an attack. So that's what they've been talking about is, yes, when you are on Twitter and you are in a public space, this is what Twitter is, a public forum, you're going to get responses from a lot of people. And those people are going to point out your malicious attacks, your inaccurate attacks, and they're going to call you out for it. Now, if you don't like that, then do not engage in that type of behavior. That is not on the supporters. So Brianna says, I admit to being part of the Bernie Sanders campaign and tweeting accurate criticisms of Michael Bloomberg. Guilty as charged. The tweets are good. Bernie was Trump's. Bernie stands with us. These are all key points. And she responds to Jennifer Rubin, a Washington Post contributor and elite white figure that is continually hating on Bernie Sanders. He says, there's a key point here. These are not random supporters. This is his campaign. And then you go on to people that are just random points, and they point out those are factual points. What inaccuracies do you see with any of that content? Are they lying? What do you want to save your party from the fascists instead of trying to help an authoritarian protest our party? We're in part of the Twilight Zone. We're calling somebody out for being a racist oligarch somehow worse than being a racist oligarch. What the fuck is this? See, this is the type of thing that they're gonna say is off the line, because he uses the words "what the fuck is this" and all these other things. When I've seen people like Joyanne Reed saying worse things like this isn't even bad. This is just true. This is just the fact that it's a potent and it packs a punch. Because that is true. What kind of Twilight Zone are we living in? We're calling somebody out for being a racist oligarch is somehow worse than being a racist oligarch. How is that the narrative that is being allowed to be spread? And the Sanders campaign, by and large, has been allowing this to fester, and has not snuffed it out the way it is properly. There is no lies. These are classic supporters. This is how Sanders replies to these people. Then somebody like a Jennifer Rubin or one of these mainstream media critics will then say that Sanders has been attacking these people viciously. Those were the same type of attacks that were posed at the culinary union. But do those seem vicious to you, or do those seem like things that are honest critiques? So this Bernie bro narrative, it's malicious, it's in bad faith, and it's inaccurate. And it's a classic upper class liberal or upper class person to think that criticisms equal malicious attacks. I'm sorry that nobody challenges you out on your bullshit in your day-to-day life, but I'm sorry to tell you, when we get to the general, this is the type of thing that we're going to need. It's supporters that are there to call out people on bullshit, that are there to call people out on mischaracterizing what democratic socialism is. That's why Bernie Sanders' campaign is so strong, because it's people power, because he has a movement, because he has a quote unquote army that will go to bat for him. And yes, there is 10% of supporters that are going to say bad things, but 90% of them are just pointing out the facts, and facts will never be attacks. And if you cannot handle these type of things, then you need to get out of politics, and you need to and first and foremost, you need to stop maliciously attacking people in bad faith. So do not allow this. So what I would like to say to the Bernie Sanders campaign is, do not allow this narrative to be spun. Do not allow them to frame the world in this way, and do not allow them. This needs to be cut down right now at the roots before this thing spreads like an infection. That we need to end it now. We need to cauterize this thing before it can spread. And I mean, and this has been a short video today, guys, but I think it's a really big point to highlight. And I think the Sanders campaign needs to become unified in their messaging. And when there is bad face attacks happening, they need to stand their ground and to not capitulate to the media. But anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. This should be on Spotify, SoundCloud, some other podcasting stuff. I think I'm distributing it through Spreaker. Follow me on Twitter at Saint_to you, sir. All connected. All right. Thanks, guys. See you later.